Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to unpack something pretty fascinating. A source that claims to find, get this, verifiable logic in a place you might not expect to look for it. Bible prophecy. And the whole argument here is that this isn't about some kind of blind faith. Nope. It's about evidence, math, and history that you can actually check. We all crave a little certainty, right? I mean, who doesn't want to know what's coming next? Whether it's the stock market or global politics, it's just a fundamental human thing. And the source we're looking at today really leans into that. But it points to a very, very old book as a tool for, well, logical foresight. Okay, so here's the core claim we're going to dig into. The argument is that this isn't about those vague, mystical sayings you might think of, the kind that could mean anything. Instead, this source says it's a system of evidence, one that's designed for a logical mind. It's all based on specific timelines and patterns that, it claims, you can actually check against the historical record. All right, let's dive right in. The very first piece of evidence this source puts on the table is a super specific mathematical calculation. It's found in the book of Daniel, and it claims to pinpoint the exact time the Messiah would show up. Now, the key here is really in the language. According to this interpretation, we're not talking about some vague, oh, someday this will happen kind of prediction. No, it sets up a really precise, measurable timeline, a total of 69 weeks. And that's what's so interesting. It's a claim you can actually test with numbers and historical dates. Okay, so to unlock this math, the source uses a special interpretive key. It's called the day for a year principle. And the idea is pretty straightforward. In this kind of prophetic language, a week isn't just 7 days. It's actually 7 times years. And you got to remember this because this one principle is absolutely crucial for the whole calculation we're about to see. Okay, so let's break this down step by step. First, you've got the total period. 69 weeks times 7 years per week. That gives you 483 years. Next, you need a starting point, right? Well, the source points to a specific historical event, a decree to rebuild Jerusalem, which is documented as happening in the year 455 BCE. So, you start at 455 BCE, you count forward 483 years, and where do you land? The year 29 CE. And this is the crucial point. It all comes down to this one single date. The source highlights that this calculated year, 29 CE, is said to be the exact year that Jesus was baptized and kicked off his public ministry, the very moment he arrived as the Messiah. The whole argument here is that the math and the history, they just line up perfectly. It's pretty incredible when you think about it that way. All right, so let's move on to the second proof and see how this argument builds. Now we're shifting gears a little. We're moving from a specific calculation to a big, sweeping historical pattern. This one also comes from the book of Daniel, and it's all about a symbolic dream, a dream about the rise and fall of world powers. So picture this. There's this dream about a giant statue made of different metals. And the interpretation here is that each part of the statue represents a world power that follows the one before it. So you've got the head of gold, that's Babylon. Then the chest of silver, Medo-Persia. The belly of copper, that's Greece. And then these powerful legs of iron, the Roman Empire. And the kicker is, each of these is a real, historically confirmed world power, and they appear in the exact right order. But then, when we get down to the feet, something changes. The pattern breaks. It's not made of a single, solid metal like all the empires that came before. Instead, it's described as this weird mixture of iron and clay. You've got something strong and something brittle, and the text specifically says they just don't stick together. And this is where the argument gets really interesting for our time. The source gives a very direct interpretation of this mixture. The strong iron, that's said to represent the incredible strength of the modern Anglo-American world power. But the clay? Well, the clay is said to represent the common people, all the internal divisions, the social friction, everything that makes the superpower incredibly strong, yet at the same time, permanently fractured from the inside. But wait, the prophecy doesn't stop there. The case being made is that the whole thing ends when a stone comes out of nowhere and smashes the statue right on its feet, completely destroying it. So what's the stone? The source interprets it as a divine government that comes in and replaces all human governments. And if that's true, it would mean that these feet of iron and clay, well, they're the last human world power in this whole prophetic timeline. So what are we supposed to make of all this? We've looked at two very different prophetic examples.
And the source we're looking at, it doesn't present this stuff as just, interesting history. It frames it as a logical conclusion that's incredibly relevant for us today.
So let's just recap the argument here. The source is saying, look, we've got a prophecy that seems to have precisely calculated the Messiah's arrival, and another one that accurately laid out the entire sequence of world powers, right down to the one we're living in now. And the conclusion it draws from that is pretty bold. It's that this creates a logical foundation for belief, one that's based on evidence you can actually check, not just, wishful thinking.
And this really gets to the why of it all. What's the purpose of this? The source points to this verse and argues that these fulfilled prophecies, well, they're not just some dusty old records to look back on. They're meant to be like a lamp, something shining in a dark place, giving us clarity and real confidence about the future, especially when the world feels so uncertain. And that, right there, is the ultimate point being made. The claim is that if you understand this prophetic logic, you can know exactly where we are in the grand sweep of history. This isn't about just having some vague hope that things will get better. It's about having a firm conviction in a very specific future that it claims has already been foretold.
So after all that, this explainer ends by basically turning the question over to you. Having laid out its whole case, from the math to the historical patterns, the source leaves us with one final big question. If this evidence is what it claims to be, what's the logical response? And that's a question that's really designed to take you from just being curious about it to actually thinking about what it means for you.